the mayor at the next meeting. Basically, it's a request for class modification letter.
Are we
that
close
needs
to
be signed.
fulfilling that, what we need for the next step?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how close, because I got to sit down and actually, figure out where all the points are, but I think we're pretty close.
Okay.
So that's the next steps as far as CRS goes.
Okay.
Otherwise, state code annual report was submitted in January. That's done. Other than that, obviously it's been snowing. I've been out and cited sidewalks a few times, kind of the usual routine. First couple of snowstorms, you get quite a few, and kind of people get after their sidewalks after a while. The bigger snowstorms, actually, I think more people take care of their sidewalks than they do with the nuisance snow. So, as of today, I think we were in pretty good shape. There's still a few spots that I didn't get around to, but I think we're looking pretty good there.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
With what we did with the zoning, now when is that zone changed? I mean, from here, what
From here,
happened?
well, basically what we need to do is, if you have, and I'll have to take a look at it, I know everybody was scribbling on the maps, but we'll have to make up a map and have that available here for people to come in and take a look at again. And then we need to get with the attorney and have him draft up all of the legalese that needs to go along with that, and then
Have a public hearing.
schedule a public hearing again and
Discuss it
go
further.
from there.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Steve, have you heard from any more of the businesses with this floodplain?
As of today, I have two applications, completed applications submitted to CWC. These are feasibility, floodproofing feasibility study applications to CWC as part of their mitigation grant program. They will provide a business $5,000 to do a feasibility study on their structure to determine whether or not it's possible to do floodproofing. And that could, most businesses, most of the structures where we're talking about in our business district, they wouldn't qualify for wet floodproofing, because you can't really wet floodproof a shop and expect everything to be there after the water goes down. So we're kind of looking at dry floodproofing and whatnot, but that's what the feasibility study is supposed to do. It's supposed to ferret out what is possible to do with this structure. And then the next step in that is to take that information and then go back to CWC for funding to actually do the project. So hopefully you get kind of a list of things that can be done, and you can pluck off of that list and go back to CWC and say, this is what we want to do. So I have, initially we approached 5 businesses. Another one kind of fell in there just because of the way the buildings are. So I have 2 applications completed and in. I have 1 application waiting for signature. I got to meet with somebody on another application. I got to wait for the school board to decide if they want to move forward on the school bus garage. They have an application ready to sign, and 1 business I haven't heard of. We tried to get CVS involved. They allowed us permission to go do an initial assessment of the building, but now that I have an application ready to give to them and say, please sign, I can't get anybody to respond. So I don't know what's going on there, which is a shame, because I mean,
It's a great opportunity.
yeah, it's an opportunity, and it's important to keep our drugstore. We got one on one side of the river, one on the other side of the river. It'd be nice, in the event of a flood situation, to be able to reopen that CVS just as quick as we can, and that's what floodproofing would accomplish.
And they're on the brook.
And they're on the brook.
Right.
Yeah, and that was an issue with the last flood. I mean,
Yep.
I remember
That's
people
right.
were getting like 2 and 3 days worth of prescriptions.
And that's why we chose that, because they were closed so long the last time. It's a semi-critical facility. Important to the people of the town and the village to be able to get their prescriptions. So
Okay.
we'll keep working on it.
Thank you.
All right?
Before we go any further, you can go, I don't mean to just finish what you go, then you can get up. I'm
That's all right.
sorry.
Take it ahead. Take it ahead.
Before I go any further, Delhi Telephone Company, I'm sorry, Jane, I saw you sitting there, and we got involved in the other thing, I don't wanna make you sit here any longer. Delhi Telephone, you wanna speak to Delhi Telephone Company?
Sure, I can.
Or,
I can go first, and I have maps here to show a little bit about our project, and I'll give a quick overview of the project, and then I'll turn it over to our engineering team, who will talk a little bit about the property that we're interested in putting a utility building in.
so we have talked about this for months and months, about coming into Walton, so I'm glad it finally.
I know.
Right, how many conversations have we had about
It's been at
this?
least 2 or 3 years, and anybody in the audience that wants a map is welcome to take one.
Go ahead.
So, a little bit of the overview of the project is Delhi Telephone has taken part in the New York Broadband Grant Program, which is Governor Cuomo created with $500 million to bring broadband to unserved and underserved homes. So as part of that, underserved is 25 meg to 100 meg, and unserved is less than 25 meg. So the goal of the governor is to get 100 meg internet service to everybody in the state by the end of 2018. As this is dragged out, we have gone through the Connect New York program, which was a $25 million program before the $500 million program started. And then we did phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And they've had different rules with each phase of the program. First one was based on the Time Warner merger, so they didn't open a lot of census blocks. And it's all census block driven. So if one served, all are served in a census block. It's hard to get a partial census block. So we have been awarded about $30 million in projects. And a large part of that is we've met with the town of Walton already a couple times, and we've already done our franchise for the town of Walton. So a large portion is the northern part of the town of Walton, coming down East Brook and also Franklin Road and hitting everything pretty much north of 206. To try to bridge that and create a loop, we've looked at bringing the fiber from that grant project into the village of Walton in a non-flood area, and we've negotiated with a homeowner to put a utility building on Miller Ave, where the old school was. And this is a utility building. It's for to regenerate the fiber, so it houses electronics. And what it does is we can send the light over the glass. We use fiber optic cable. We can send the light over the glass about 20 miles. After about 20 miles, it starts to degenerate, and we have to regenerate the light. With that, that's where we use remotes, we use cabinets. We have a building, obviously our headquarters in Delhi. We have a building in Hamden. We just set a site in Franklin by the cell tower. We just put a concrete building there. We have cabinet locations at the Sydney Center Fire Department. We just put one in the Masonville Library. We're working with the Village of Sydney Board and buying a property there. We just purchased a property on 8 Boyce Road in Trout Creek to put a concrete building, and we're looking at putting a building in on Miller Ave. This would be an unmanned building, and it would be, it houses our electronics. We'd have inventory there, and the vans would be in and out hooking up customers, is basically what it'd be. Right now, with the Village of Walton, with the grant builds, we're looking at building 4 miles into the village with a little over 500 homes passed. All of our services, we'd offer telephone, internet, cable, television, and also security. All of our products are available whenever we go by with glass. And it is even though it's grant funded, it is not mandatory. They can select whatever provider they would like. If they're happy with Frontier or Time Warner, Spectrum, they're not required to take our services or have us attached to their home at all. But every home we pass with an individual fiber. So going down an individual street, we'll have a 48 fiber or a 24 fiber. That's our language for how many fibers are in the cable that are going down, and then we go off with a fiber for every home. So once you have a fiber connected to your home, the national average is the value of your home goes up $6,000 on average. and you're pretty much future-proofed because we're already sending a gig over the fiber to homes. The ports we use on our electronics give us the availability to send up to a gig to the home and internet. Right now, we have packages from 75 meg up to 250 meg, but in special circumstances where people need a gig, we can get it to them. Also, if we change out the electronics, we can do 10 gig or 100 gig at the home by changing out the electronics. So it's a nice future-proofing of whatever, people's appetite for the internet are. However, 60% of our network right now is streaming Netflix and YouTube, so it's streaming video.
That's right.
So before I turn it over to Delta Engineers, does anybody, that was kind of a very quick, I know the meeting's gone pretty long, I didn't want to keep people, that was a pretty quick version. We will request that we'll be bringing a franchise agreement to the board. Probably we'll ask for the Time Warner franchise because required by the Public Service Commission, we can't ask for any special treatment. So whatever's in Time Warner's, we have to basically duplicate it.
I have a quick question. Do you have any idea when all this might happen? Because I know that's what everybody's thinking about. Is it like 2018? Is it 2019? I mean, that the actual people can sign up.
This build is 2018. We have to have the distribution network done by the end of 2018 for phase 2. Phase 3, which fills in some of the pieces of town of Walton, I've talked to Charlie about this a little bit. That we were just approved on January, last Wednesday, we were approved for phase 3. We did get a extension to to December of 2019 for phase 3. But this portion of the construction would be 2018.
When you're talking construction, do you mean just construction, or do you mean somebody can actually have your service?
It goes through 4 phases. First, we do make ready, and we attach to existing poles, either
I don't
NICEAG
care
or
about any of the front
electrical.
stuff. When do I get it?
End of the year. It'd be ready to
On Howell
install.
Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you wouldn't be
Ah.
for 2 years. We're not building out the rest of the village until
Okay.
after 2019. We have to get our grant builds done
Are you
first.
seeking additional locations to put up houses other than Miller Avenue?
No. So if that was the only site we found in the village. If that, we would just remove it from the village.
Without getting into a commercial, if somebody's already got Spectrum, what's the pros or cons to, is there a big difference?
It's a competitive service. Ours is a dedicated network versus a shared network. So there's the speed issue. Reliability, our techs are on call 24 hours a day, and because we're a local company, our techs are required to be within an hour of the office, and they have to respond to any trouble ticket 24/7. So if your internet goes out in the middle of the night, our techs will be there within 2 hours. And that's something that, being a local company supporting a local area, not only do we support the fire departments in any municipal building we pass, including volunteer fire departments, we give free service to. We are local, all of our techs are local, our our offices are local, and we respond to troubles within an hour. So I know, I've heard experiences from different companies, whether it's, Frontier or Time Warner, that sometimes they're scheduling them a trouble. Somebody's out of service and they're scheduling them a week to 2 weeks out. We don't do that. If you're out of service, we respond. Unless somebody tells us not to come, then we come in the morning. If they go out at 11 o'clock and say, I'm going to bed.
Never tell you that.
Well, a lot of people say, I'm going to bed. Just come in the morning, please. That'll be fine.
Okay.
So this could expand to the rest of the village in following years?
That's the goal. Once we have a building that we can run fibers out of, to create the distribution network, our goal is to build out the rest of the village within, I can't give any hard dates because we don't have them, but within a few years,
Is it
2000.
just residential, is it also businesses?
Anything we pass, there's a fiber available. We allocate it on 911 addresses so that there's always a fiber available to every 911 address we pass.
So if you're on Miller Avenue and you're gonna have stuff by the end of the year, I only live 3 blocks away.
Wait, where are you on the map?
Walton Street, it's only a couple of blocks.
You're on the other side of the river, right?
No,
Oh,
I'm
if
3
you're not,
blocks away.
She's outside the census point.
Off Delaware Street.
we'll have
It's
to
like
look at
3
whether it
blocks
dropped me
away.
down there.
Who are you giving service to?
Knocked him
How about
down.
rural, outside, say Eastbrook, Westbrook?
Anything north of 206 and Route 10 is pretty much covered. With the Phase 2 and Phase 3, we got all the census blocks. So this project, actually, when we started, Delhi Telephone Company was 350 road miles, and we passed about 3,500 homes.
You're good.
After all 3 of the phases of the grant, we'll have about 1,200 road miles, and we'll pass about 15,000 homes. We'll run from Skenevis, Maryland area to Hobart, we still cover Bovina and Hamden, Walton, Masonville. We'll go all the way over to Afton, Bainbridge, Sydney, Unadilla, and Oneonta. So we'll have the whole northern part of the county, and we'll touch Otsego, Broome, and Shenango counties.
Cool.
So it's a pretty big project for us. We built 200 miles of fiber, I think, in roughly 8 years, and we have 1,000 miles now to build in 2 years. So it'll be ambitious.
I'm assuming that the green highlighted area on the map are the target areas,
I'm sorry, that's where our fiber will be, yes.
the first phase during your...
Correct. As part of the grant, that's what we're building.
And I see that most of the areas are looped, so it's continuous.
Right.
I do have a question, though. Between Platt and East Street, specifically Liberty Street, is not highlighted.
So they know you live there.
Why is that not highlighted?
I gave them names, Joe.
Well, and the big thing with this is the reason there's a lot more covered than we originally planned is because of the way the guys are on the poles. To terminate our fibers, we had to run to where there was an existing guy rather than trying to put another guy wire. And so some of the runs were a little longer than we, just to loop into the village and come back out. For the grant build, we had to do it based on how the poles in the village are, and not resetting poles.
Joe, for example, there's one that said right in front of the Townsend School. If we don't make that turn, we've got to put an anchor in the Townsend School's yard. We don't think they're gonna let us do that.
I don't care about that.
I'm not the only one here.
One of the reasons there's an area that has potential for, in one specific location, there's 20 units in an apartment complex that you can pick up to 20 people in one location.
Right.
On Liberty Street. So, and I'm looking at some of these other streets too, the number of potential customers on some of these highlighted streets are relatively a lot lower than specifically Liberty Street between Platt and East. Just food for thought.
I mean, our goal is to build out the entire village.
Understand?
It's just we have to meet the grant first, and then our goal is
Just
to.
wanted to.
Walton is the first village we're gonna go around the horn, so we'll actually be doing Afton, Bainbridge, Sydney, Unadilla, and
We don't care about
Oneonta.
that.
But I assure you, I have Walton as the first village. I grew up here also, as Dick Gifford was saying.
I will give them permission to put that tower for you in my yard on Platt Street.
Wait a minute, what about me? What about,
Then it'll cover you too.
okay.
We've been talking about this for a few years now, 2-3 years now, right?
Yes. Yep. Mayor Snow's been lobbying me for a while now, at least 2-3 years. When you coming to Walton? When you guys gonna have it here? And we've been working on it.
No, I appreciate
And then
it,
the
'cause I
grant
think it's good.
programs
You're
came
gonna
up
find
and-
out that's really good for your company.
Yep.
Competition is good. I'm glad you listened to me about Liberty Street. That was nice of you. Thank you. Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. You were here.
And now Delta Engineering will go over our plans for the Miller site, Miller Ave site.
Lively meeting tonight, folks. My name is Craig Wakeman. I'm an architect with Delta, Engineers Architect Managers out of Enville. With me this evening is Jeremy Deering, one of our architectural designers. We brought together 11x17 packages for the board. I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here. The whole thing. With regards to the project. But what you see in the package is what you can see up here. With the exception of, there's the application that's been filled out along with the EAF short form. We presented this project last Thursday to the planning board on short notice. We thank you again for seeing us. We understand that because of this project and where it is, you're going to have a conditional use that the village board is going to have to exercise, okay, for a couple different reasons that I'll get into. So what I want to do first is go over, kind of give you the overall shot of where the project is with regards to the site on Miller Avenue and where we are on the north side. What you're seeing is a map that's basically overlaid on a survey, so you're seeing the boundary lines. So here's Miller Avenue. This is the site where the old school was. You can probably faintly make out where the old school steps were over here. The proposed building we're sitting is right here. The building's not very big, as Ken depicted. On the left-hand side of the building is what's described as the central hub. That's where all the electronics are going to be stored within the building itself. So basically, this is your boosted signal. This is really what is coming in and it's going out. On the right-hand side is a two-bay garage. I mean, that's really the guts of the building is what we're talking about. So the overall structure, we're a little over 1,500 square feet. It's not very big. Purposely, we're going to design it so it's in keeping with the neighborhood. It's got a very residential feel to it. It's basically going to look like somebody's two-car garage. And the idea behind that is we're not looking to attract attention to the building. We're looking to fit it into the existing context of the neighborhood. Okay? Gable roof, very easy structure to look at and say, okay, it's just someone built a two-car garage. And that's what we're looking to do.
For security purposes, we don't want to stand out as a utility. You know, in Delhi, we connect the 911 switchboard and everything else, so all of our buildings have to be locked. And so they're not retail locations, they're just utility buildings.
Are they alarmed?
Yes.
Yeah, and where they are going to have...
And there'll be cameras.
We're going to have security cameras. We will have some lighting on the building, but the look here is not to drop this large flooding pole light structure in here to light up the whole lot. I mean, it's really, again, to have a residential look to it. There will be a pole on the site in here to provide all the services that are going to come into the building with regards to the overhead. And that's one of the things we're working out is where do we think that pole is going to be in relation to the other pole, and then the services will be coming in underground to the building. Out front, we know that there's the existing utilities that are there for the water and the gas and the like that will be coming in there. One of the things we looked at, and this is something that we had given Steve early on, was just a code review. It's basically just what are the applicable codes for the building, egress, fire resistant rating, and we're looking at two different options right now on how to construct the building for cost and also for schedule. Both of them are energy code compliant, whether we go with a block building and insulate it, or whether we go with a wood stud building and insulate it. So that's discussions that we're currently having with Ken. Either way, you'll never know the difference on the exterior because it's still going to be a horizontal clapboard siding. It's just a question of a cost and a schedule kind of thing of what we're looking to do.
One thing to add to this, we did choose the residential look too, because typically where we put our huts or shelters, whichever one you want to call them, are in remote areas. If you pass the Frontier Verizon shelter, they're gray or a brownstone building. They're not the prettiest thing you'll run into. And to put them in here in the residential, we just didn't want to do that.
Right.
And I apologize for the lack of introductions. I'm Jason Miller, I'm the general manager of Delhi Telephone. Ken Prestige is our operations manager. So
Anyway, so what we have is again, the central hub area with racks, 2 vehicles in here, a convenience toilet and utility closet. I mean, it's a very simple building. It doesn't need to be elaborate. The whole idea here basically is to come in here, they grab their equipment, they do whatever they need to do, they leave. They may come back intermittently during the day. You're probably gonna have about 2 people coming in and out of this facility. So as far as traffic, it's gonna be pretty low. You got 2 vehicles.
Now, is this housing the vehicles that are being used during the construction of the cable and everything, or for servicing of the in-house connections once the system is done?
this is just housing, possibly, and we're not sure that it's gonna yet, but it would be housing our service tech vans. So our service van, not the construction equipment, no.
Okay.
And the goal here is, instead of driving all the way back to Delhi for a set-top box or for a, you know,
Well,
a
it's
drop
sort of why I
wire
was
for
asking, to make
installation, we're gonna have our electronics there to regenerate the light, but then we'd have racking for set-top boxes, drop wire for installations, ONTs, the electronics for the side of the house. So if they forget something, they don't have to come all the way back to Delhi to get it. They have an inventory in Walton.
So again, as we indicated before, front elevation, couple overhead doors, residential feel to it, single door. Any windows that we're gonna have on here, it's gonna have an opaque glass to it. In other words, you can't see it. The whole idea is to, again, you can see it has a residential feel to it, but you can't see the amount of electronics that are actually gonna be in here or understand what the workings of the building, what's going on this. And what we basically have done is we've given you a 3D rendering out of the, kind of as the bird's eye view off the pole across the street to say, okay, here's what it's gonna, we're proposing and it looks like, okay? So again, it gives you that residential feel. You're gonna have a ground sign out front, basically tells people that this is what the building is, but other than that, you would never know it was a Delhi Telephone building on this. So, a couple things that we had spoke about early on regarding the actual lot itself, okay? We know that the lot is contiguous. In other words, this particular parcel of land actually extends across Miller Avenue, okay? So you have subdivision, because they're looking to purchase the north half of the lot. So do a little research on your zoning regulations. This is classified as a minor subdivision. And what I'm looking at is on your code book, on your zoning. So with that, we understand that there's got to be a public hearing that's going to happen on that. So on behalf of Delhi Telephone, what we'd like to do is make sure if we could schedule that public hearing, if you could, the board is so inclined to make a motion to schedule a public hearing at the next meeting so that this project can keep moving, keep advancing on here. Because again, you've got some residences, and I want to speak for them, they're asking, when is my service coming? Well, service can't come unless the building is built. And the building can't get built until the property is subdivided. And the property can't get subdivided until
a public hearing.
there's a public
And
hearing.
if we could do a franchise agreement, public hearing, if we could schedule that at the same time this week, or, you know, I can send over our franchise proposal for you guys to review, and then the public hearing, and then we vote on it or whatever. Because that would give us access to the.
All right, you want to do a public hearing next meeting?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried, done.
So one of the last things was that the planning board did issue some conditions with regard to the recommendation to the village board. One of them was talking about Shepherd Street for emergency access only, because we understand what the condition of the road, the existing road is. St. John Street for all traffic. In other words, looking for a potential one-way because of some of the other road work that was potentially going to be happening in and around the area. So again, that was one of the conditions. No outside storage. One of the questions with the planning board was, okay, 18-wheelers full of spools of fiber, reels laying around the yard, those sorts of things. That's not the intention here at all of what this is.
We have a tough code guy, you be out.
I understand. We were on the phone back and forth for a few times before the planning board meeting.
And we have a cable yard already in Delhi. And then with the 8 Boys purchase, we purchased over 8 acres to do a temporary yard for our cables on 8 Boys Road. So we have a location on either side of the build, so we don't need to put anything in the village.
But again, it was a valid question, a valid concern on that. And then with regards to the utilities, the pole, and what the overhead cabling was going to be and how big it's going to be, and I think that the folks from Delhi Telephone has indicated what the fiber size is going to be and how many pairs. Or I think one of the concerns was, you know, how much wire is coming into this building? What is it going to look like? You're going to see this large trapeze of a pole out here on the site. You're going to see this big knob of wires coming into the building. I mean, I'm an architect, but I can tell you, deal with companies that deal with fiber, the stuff is getting smaller and smaller all the time. So I think you'd be surprised at how much service you're going to get out of that.
Well, that's the thing. If you look at what's on the main street, you know, the copper from Frontier. You look at a 600 pair copper wire and it's large. You look at a 288 fiber and it's, you know, very, very small, even smaller than that. And anything going into the building, we're gonna bury anyway in conduit. So we'll be coming off the poles and then into buried conduit into the building. So it's not gonna look like a squirrel's nest out there. You know,
And the last thing that we'll speak to is regards to, there was somewhat, I'll say a mild concern with regard to site drainage on the site. So we understand something very near and dear to the village is obviously how much water is being discharged off this building, impervious surface and the like. The good thing is that when we were looking at the soils on this, is that the soils on here, and I was talking with Ken earlier today, I said I learned something new was with regards to tuncanic gravelly loam, which is what you have here in Walton. So it's a type A soil, which means A is great, D is horrible, like clay and silt. So point being, this drains very well. So anything that we do here on the site, we can basically, our gut feeling is that we can do something with a French drain with some piping that will help alleviate any water that's going to go into that, and then give it time to alleviate down and through this. So we're not looking at any underground retention or anything like that. We're disturbing less than a half an acre. And again, the building is a little over 1,500 square feet, so our roof area is pretty small, as is the parking area. So we're underneath that acre threshold for any disturbance.
and by creating a circular drive, that helps with not using Shepherd Street.
Yeah.
We can turn around on our own property to go back out
Yeah.
on St. John.
Yep.
The only time I'd ask for Shepherd Street use is during construction, the actual construction.
Well, yeah.
Once that is done.
Yeah, you're good.
We're
Yeah.
done.
When you do that, when you do some site work in here and those sorts of things, you're gonna need that. And we understand there's an old school there. We do have proposals on behalf of Delhi Telephone for soil borings. So, depending on how this timing is gonna be going on and everything else, we will be getting a boring rig out there at some point in time to do some soil samples to do that. And that's just a standard that we always do. So,
What kind of materials did you say would be on the outside of the building?
clapboard siding, we're looking at something that would be very keeping with the existing residential, so whether it's gonna be either, it could be a cement board siding, it could be a vinyl siding, it could be something along those sorts of lines, but again, we're not looking at bare block, we're not looking at brick,
Okay.
we're not looking at an EFIS project, if you're familiar with EFIS, which is the exterior insulation finish system like a stucco. Again, it's going to have a horizontal look to it.
Okay.
Similar to how we redesigned our Bavina remote. Same thing, we put siding on it, we put a new roof on it, so that it looks like a residential building
Good.
versus traditional utility buildings that are just cinder block. They're kind of eyesores.
Yeah, that was
A
my
little bit.
concern. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
this will look very residential, and that's the whole reason for the windows also. We obviously we don't want any windows. It's
Right.
it's a utility building, and it's a secure location, so we don't want any windows. So they're fake windows,
Oh.
just for the residential look.
We
Nice.
have to have a couple. You gotta put a couple on here, so, yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
The alarm system would be tied, I'm just thinking about the local police, like, the alarm system would be tied into what?
Just our text reporting.
Okay.
We have alarms for if the generator fails, heat, smoke, because if the electronics fail, it's a systemic issue, everybody loses service type deal. So we have alarming on all of our electronics, all of the building for heat, because if the HVAC unit fails, it'll cook our electronics literally. So we have to have actually hardened HVAC units on there that they'll come on, and if it's -10, we still need air conditioning inside the building, because this one won't be as bad because there's not a lot of electronics in there. But when we do put electronics in there, it generates a lot of heat and it has to be cooled. This is being a small remote, won't generate that kind of heat, so they won't come on in the winter. But
Just have a fan.
But that's why we alarm everything, to make sure that we know what the climate control is inside for the electronics.
Okay.
So no, it's not necessarily burglary as much as alarming our equipment. And we will put door alarms and like access badge to get in, but nothing that would trouble the cops with false alarms or anything.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next month.
All right, the next thing, I'm gonna skip over to number 10, the 8793 Delaware Street Flood Buyout Program Resolution. Evan Farrell is here from the planning department.
You just want to talk about the taxation and maintenance issues, or?
Whatever you want to put in on that,
Okay.
Brian.
I know this has been in front of you for at least one meeting now, right? It's been tabled, or?
No, this is the first time we brought
Oh,
it
this
up
is the first
before,
time.
yeah.
Okay, this resolution is essentially a formality that the village will allow the sale of both of Keith Davis's properties in order to move ahead with the buyout program. The eventual plan for both pieces of properties is to become a floodplain and park area, a low intensity use park area. As far as our place alliance work, where we've kind of drawn up some conceptual drawings, those two properties have been something similar to a path, trees, something mowed, maybe a low-use, multi-use trail going through it.
How about a rock garden, so we don't have to mow it?
Well, possible. Anything's conceptual at this point.
Railroad used to be.
So, is our current status, the contracts are ready to sign, I believe, Keith, right? Or we're close on that. The town has offered to...
City.
That's all signed.
Yeah, the town
signed way back.
Town has signed, yeah.
It had
Okay,
to be signed before the state of New York would approve it anyway. So all that's been done, whatever.
so before they move ahead, they wanted to get approval through the village. The town has offered to take responsibility for the property once it's been approved and sold. As a result of that, the village would not be responsible for maintenance costs in perpetuity for whatever ends up on there as far as a park. Otherwise, the village would be responsible for hiring out maintenance and taking care of this piece of property.
Since the village really has nothing to do with this, why do we have to approve a resolution?
It's your property in the village.
It's within the corporate
It's
village.
within the village.
That's why. Even though it's gonna be town property, it's within the corporate village is the reason for it.
Any other questions?
Okay, if there's no other questions, then it says resolution offered by, in which case I offer.
Well, we are,
Let's make it the motion, right?
yeah, making the motion, right. Everybody has to vote on this, one way or the other, correct? Think?
We need a second.
A second? Anybody gonna second the motion?
I'll second it.
All right, so, all in favor, say A. A-Y-E.
You don't have to do it separate? No.
If everybody, unless somebody says nay, then it'll be there. Is it an A, there's two A's, three
Yeah,
A's? No? Nay?
No, I said aye.
Aye. A. Aye. A. Hank, you okay? Yes?
Well, you want another hay? Or
A-Y-E, A. Is that you an A or a nay?
I'm an A.
Okay, well, I'm an A too. So it's unanimous.
Don't add to it.
Okay, I guess we're done with that. So that would,
And if possible, could you email me a copy of the
so you can do that.
resolution?
Yeah,
That way I can file it.
yep. Okay, thank you for coming down.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay,
Right.
good night. I think we've covered it. Most people have been, I'm sorry, but it's taken a while. All right, now, number 4, public input. If anyone would like to have more public input, then we can be here for another 2 hours. Please, excuse me, please, name and address, and I'll give you some time to speak. Thank you.
Maxine Rocker, 17 Howell Street, who's not getting the internet. However, what I'd like to know is, couldn't you guys get a little microphone and put on the table so that the people in the back can hear what you're saying? I mean, I know that it sounds, but they can't hear you. It's
Stop
only a
talking to
little
each
thing.
other back there.
My husband can't hear me when I'm sitting right next to him.
You should sit
He's
up
gonna
front.
ask me when I get home
We have a chair
to
here for him.
repeat every single thing you
We can look
guys
into
say.
it. Yes, we
Eventually, he's gonna
can.
sit in front.
No, he won't. I will, I'll sit in front.
She heard that. She heard that. You think it's just you? They think we can't hear?
Maybe, but really,
Yeah.
it's only a little thing, but people can't hear.
Does the town have an amplifier in their room?
No, we don't.
They keep their voices up.
Yeah, they're facing.
This is a
when
tough
people-
crowd.
I know, but when people are up here, they're facing the wall over
All right, we can
there.
discuss it and look into it with the board, as long as they want to
It's
go
only a
when we
little
do.
thing.
Okay, all
But
right.
you know, I'll just say something. This goes back, and I guess I'm endorsing what you're saying. This goes back, no matter where we've had the table, no matter where the board was facing, I mean, this goes back for years, so I couldn't agree more.
You know, we can hear you, but when you have people sitting there, they're facing that wall.
Yeah.
They're not projecting.
Yeah, we
to
tried
us,
over there,
they're
we tried in the back, now we
projecting
tried here, it's still
I
not
know.
working, so you're
So
right,
you need
okay.
a microphone.
We're gonna go there, but we blocked the bathroom, we can't do that. Okay, all right, okay, I hear you. Anyone else care to say anything? Yes.
I understand that the village now owns what formerly was a bowling alley.
But you didn't tell us who you were or where you lived.
Charlene Gregory, 72 Stockton Avenue. Okay, so the village now owns this.
Correct.
Could you give me an estimate of the time that the ownership will be maintained by the village, or when you might be putting it out to bid for new owners?
We're not putting it out to bid. We have an interested party already that was interested, the name was put on the grant application because that's what the state wanted. We had to submit a name. We have a person who is a business person who lives in the village who is going to take over this project once we get the funds and all the work is done. The grant will be approved in late February, March. We'll know how much we're gonna get. So far, from what I've heard, there is more than enough money for the amount of people that put in for the grant. So it looks, I don't want to jinx us, but it looks very good that we'll get the grant money on this. And once that is done, we are in the process of signing a contract with the individual who will reimburse us any money that we've cost us so far. Would be for taxes, for the purchase price, for the insurance. Anything that we're going to be paying for will be reimbursed to us from the new owner of the property. And he's already got at least four businesses that are interested in coming in, that are going to sign up. Number one will be the bowling alley be reopened again. He has another person interested in opening up a Mexican restaurant. There's another couple that wants to do a bagel shop. And there are something for the kids they wants to work on, with a laser tag or something of that nature. And so almost all the places will be filled once we're done with it. So that's where we're at right now. And as we do more, once we get the grant, we'll let everybody know. But it will not cost the village anything. Whatever fees have been paid for already will be reimbursed from the new owner. That will be his price. Okay, I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
We know you don't have the TV service, you know.
No, I don't even have a TV. I don't care about the TV.
Then what are you worried about service
I want
for?
the internet part.
Oh,
You know, the Netflix thing, the streaming, that's what I want. This is regards to what she just said. If you got this new building that's coming, it's gonna have all these cool things, that's even closer to the water. And when Steve was talking over here, he said that those buildings that are even further away from the water, that there wasn't a thing that you could do to keep them from being flooded. I'm confused.
Well, no, there is a thing. We can flood-proof them.
He said that it wouldn't work.
It will work. It'll work on.
You need to talk to him.
You can flood-proof a building. There's a thing that if a building is in an area where the velocity of water is more than 5 feet per second, is that what it is? Then by law, you're not supposed to be able to flood-proof it because, right? Am I right, Bill?
That's
You know
right.
that, right?
There's different levels of floodproofing, and depending on what the water elevation and water velocity is, it dictates how a building has to be addressed when it comes to floodproofing.
But they can be flood-proof.
In this case, this
Because this
purchaser,
is gonna be in.
the purchaser is obtaining a grant to do that. What he was referring to were people who have existing businesses.
Can't afford to do
Right.
that. And they get a
I think
grant?
that's what he was trying to.
Well, well, this is a special grant
Yeah, I
from the
know, but
state
I'm feeling
that
bad for
said
these
that
other people that
if
you just
they
told
want to
that-
take a building that was a business before, and they want to give you the money to renovate it, but part of that grant is that it has to go to a business other than the municipality. And we had to submit a name, so
Yeah, and
that's what
I'm
we're doing.
loving that.
Yeah.
I just am really feeling bad for these people.
Now, the people on Delaware Street, you can flood-proof them. You can flood-proof them. But you don't have to. The only reason you have to flood-proof a building if you invest more than 50% of the assessed value of that property in 1 year.
Right.
Because I've had this conversation. So I said, if you have a property that's worth, say, $200,000, and you need say maybe you have $200,000 worth of improvements what you want to do. If you try to do it that first year, you'd have to flood-proof it. But I said, well, what if the person wants to do $100,000 this year and $100,000 next year? Then he said, yeah, you could do that, and then you wouldn't be forced to flood-proof the building. Flood-proofing is only because you're spending more than 50% of the value of the home, and the law requires you to do it. If you have the property and you want to fix it and you don't want to flood-proof it, and you pay your own insurance about it, don't worry about it, that's up to you. I hope that clears it up a little bit.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
look at I'm back.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Paul.
There's two things. Committee reports, if they could roll up to the minutes, that would be great. Or not committee, but the department head report.
You had mentioned before,
Yeah.
we had discussed it, I had discussed it with the clerk, I had discussed it with the lawyer. The one reason why we don't do it, because there's going to be a lot more paperwork that's going to have to be saved, because some of these reports is 30, 40 pages. And that's one of the reasons why we don't do it. The second reason is, it's the clerk's minutes. And according to law, the clerk can do the minutes as she wants to do the
Okay, I
minutes.
just wasn't sure. So basically, the reports have to be obtained anyway.
So what we could do, we could put extra copies of the report on the table
Okay.
if you want reports. We could do that.
The reports and the real report is what they say at the table.
Right, but in the, obviously, we've spoken ad nauseum about code and zoning issues, and you mentioned something about Sheffield, and and then
7 village inspectors.
The trustees haven't.
Oh, trustees, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Trustee Steve, we'll start with you. Anything?
Nothing to report.
Teresa?
I would just like to thank our PD. They're doing a great job, and it's reflecting in the grants that we're getting. So thank you very much to you and all the other officers.
Is it?
Yep.
The Theater Preservation Association met on January 9th. Paula reported that the Delaware River Stage Company's holiday show was a major hit, as always is. They raised $5,000 over the course of the showings, and they were putting that money toward the cost of the stage extension. The fella named Jordan, I don't have his last name, from downstate has been.
We're in a position where we want to look at the future a little bit and say, and Georgia said, well, what can we do that would be good for Walton too? Because she's a Walton girl too. We actually had three different people actually approach us about buying the store and the house next door, which we would want to do. Those two properties, one of them is really no good with the other, because the properties almost infringe on each other right now. There would be, if I sold the store to one person and that house to another person, there would be a fight there constantly, because of parking would, they would park on each other, the kids would be out in the parking lot, they would do it. So we made up our minds, well, it has to go together. Well, we had interested people over the past few years. One of those people, by the way, is sitting in this room, and he or she actually is opposed to the zoning. But they wanted to, they did make a overture to us about the business. So we decided it has to go together. So these people that approached us, as soon as they found out that it was zoned residential, they backed out of it. So what we envisioned, and some of these people, was a place, maybe a professional building, on the other end of the spectrum. We thought, well, it's a nice place, it's coming right into Walton, but a great place for a welcome center, because one guy wanted to make like a log cabin look out of the house. He has money, I don't have the money to do something like that, you know? I put all my money just putting the addition on the store and tried to make it look nice. But, so we ran into a problem selling these properties because it's zoned residential, even though we sat right in the middle of commercial use. My store, the castle, the Grange, hospital's up the road, the fabrication plant is right up at the end of the street. So we ran into difficulty because we really feel the two properties have to go together, and one of them being residential has blocked our sale of the property. And no one's more interested in having something. The way it is now, folks, I'm telling you, it would be nothing but good for Walton, the way if this was rezoned to multi-use. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but that used to be multi-use years ago. It was all multi-use. Nothing bad, nothing dastardly happened under that. But that's my situation, and this is my son Joe, and if he wants to put some words in my mouth that I haven't said, but that's our problem. That's our problem. And we feel that it would be nicer, because the way it is, and believe me, I don't want it that way, but the way it is, those houses are going the wrong way. And we can't afford, so the village is either gonna have a couple of dumps on their hands, or there's a possibility that we could move these properties to someone who could do something nice. And we wouldn't sell it to somebody that wasn't gonna improve it. We just wouldn't. You'll have to trust me on that one. But we do have an interest in Walton.
Okay.
We still love Walton.
Thanks
I still root for the Walton teams. So I have
Even from Delhi, huh? Thank you.
But that, that's my side of it.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. I appreciate it.
I think you're the opposite side to what I am, because I'm in the residential. I want to stay residential.
And I think your property would stay, I think it would stay residential, because I...
All right, one second. Let's, this will be talking to the board. Yes, go ahead.
Maggie Monaco, 5 Soul Place. If that's the case, if that's what needs to be done for his business, there's how many businesses right in a row there? Why not stop at the castle? Why include residential houses? Just stop there if it's just...
That was my next question. I was just going to ask Steve. I mean, I think do you have to go from block to block?
It goes back to that rerequirement of being continuous.
Because then you're back to the spot zoning again, right?
Correct.
Could I ask a question, sir?
Yes, sir.
How hard is it, because I actually at one point tried to go through as a route, and it didn't go very far. How hard is it to get a variance in a case like mine?
You're not going to get one, because in order to get a variance, you have to have a project. You have to say, I want to turn this residential structure into a commercial structure. So at this point, obviously, that's not your personal desire. So you're not coming to me with an application to say, this is what I want to do, and have me tell you that's against zoning.
But if I'm understanding this correctly, if you're saying that you have someone who's interested in it, why couldn't they come to you with this idea and say, this is what we're going to do? Could they then do it? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, if he's going to sell it to a person who wants to turn it over into a business, or whatever he wants to do, and they come to you and say, so-and-so is buying the property, we're going to make it this, but we need a variance. If you have something like that, is that then make it a little bit more?
I have attempted in the past to send speculative variances to the board, and they won't hear them.
And by the same token, a person that is interested in buying it, it's speculative to him. I can say, well, maybe you can get a variance. But if they're intending on putting money, you know,
Big
a
money,
lot
yeah.
of money
Right.
into a property, they want a little bit more than speculation. And I'm only saying my situation. I understand people, and I know how things work, you know. You guys are government. These people are, they don't exactly trust you, you know. In case you don't know.
Well, it helps that we have you here to argue that point, because you're really the reason why we're here. The letter was very vague, but now everyone who's suspicious should realize this is why we're here.
Yeah, and I understand that there was a little stuff going on Facebook and stuff that
Yeah, well,
that said it had to do with the mental health clinic.
that's another whole thing. We'll address that in a little bit. If we went across everything that was on Facebook, we'd be here for 5 hours. I mean,
We have a
yes.
question.
Yeah, Bob Locker, 17 Howell Street, and it's a question for Steve.
Sure.
What prospective variance was brought before what board and refused?
Probably I misspoke that. The guidance that I received, that I have received in the past, fairly recent past from county, is that you can't put a speculative variance before the board.
Before what board?
Before the zoning board.
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right.
Okay.
So what would make it not be speculative? Something in writing that they're gonna purchase it and this is what they're gonna do?
Right, the whole idea is that if you're gonna issue a variance, you're issuing a variance on an actual project.
Like we did for the condos over on Sheffield Estates, something like that.
Right, something like that.
Yeah.
Now, see, if somebody applies for that based on the speculation that they're gonna do this with the building, and it's approved, and the sale falls, you know, hypothetical for sure, but and the sale falls through for whatever reason.
Would that cancel out?
What, is it everything revert back to the, you know, the pumpkin and the glass slippers, or does
Well,
it?
with any variance can be issued with conditions. Okay, so if a guy said I had a project and he issued a variance based on that project and then the project fell through, you know, if the ZBA was a little uneasy about the whole thing to begin with, say, okay, well, you know, if nothing has happened in 60 days, the variance goes away. Or it's also written into our code that any variance expires after 1 year if there's not substantial progress on a given project.
It seems to me that that might be a way for you to go.
But I've already attempted that, and I can't get it to the board.
How involved do they have to be? Do they have to have architectural drawings? I mean, like 10, 20, 50,000, $100,000 involved in something like this, and then present it to you? Or like, we have an idea, we want to tear down some buildings and put up a one-story?
No, they go through the building permit application process.
So they have to be very specific.
Right, and part of my permit review process is making sure that it...
So therefore, it may be cost prohibitive for anybody to try to go for a variance. Because if they have to have tens of thousands of dollars already invested to present it.
Well, that's true in any case. If somebody's going to do a project, and that's why you have pre-planning meetings to discuss all of this before we get to the actual application process, to make sure everybody's on the same sheet and headed in the same direction.
You wanted to say something?
I just have a question for Steve. Keith Davis, 80 Delaware Street. You mentioned that the regulations say from street to street. Whose regulations?
That would be zoning regulations.
Who's
for New York State.
Who's zoning regulations?
New York State sets
New York
the
State. So
guidelines
New York
for
State
zoning.
is telling the Village of Walton what you can and can't do. This village has nothing to say with the taxes that we pay, what we want to zone our village for.
All I can tell you is that zoning regulation comes from New York State.
Do you think New York State really cares what we do in Walton? Huh? No, they don't. They got enough financial problems of their own. But I think that we're putting a burden on the taxpayers of this community to stifle any kind of growth or whether it's residential area or commercial area, by saying, okay, the state says you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm fed up with it in my business, and this community, I think, is getting fed up with some of the state regulation. All of our buildings in this community are old. Our
Yes,
streets
they
are
are.
old, our
Our turn
bridges
is
are
not
old. So we can't meet all of these codes.
But you
My
can't, at the
building-
same time, you can't ask Steve to put one, whether you're licensed or certified or whatever you are. You can't ask Steve to put all that on the line.
Let the state pay for it. Let the state pay for it.
Well, that's not gonna
That's not
happen.
gonna happen? Oh, but they can regulate us out of business and out of our homes?
Yeah. All right, we gotta get moving on. Come on, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. On this speculative variance, are other towns able to do this, or are they all governed by the same regulation that speculative variances
Governed by
are
this.
impossible?
Your zoning, your specific zoning regulations are created by the village, but they're based on state zoning regulation. Best I can answer that.
So no,
I have not been to another town ZBA or village ZBA to ask them that pointed question, so I can't answer that as I stand here right now.
so you get your information from a book or from another person?
I get
A
my...
higher up.
Both.
Where's the book?
And the higher up says,
I take zoning guidance from county.
All right, we're getting a little bit off track here. Let's, I gave everybody a chance. Yes, go ahead.
Just Joe Gifford, born in Walton, live in Delhi, 2032 Arbor Hill Road. I just have, and this may be a planning question, I don't know if you can answer, but grandfathered properties. You know, obviously his business was a business prior to the gun shop, and what's, you know, if you look, just common sense, if anybody here looks at the map and the shape of his parcel, it's triangular shape and it's very small, and the parking for Grange and his shop is in, it just makes sense to combine at least those two lots on the corner for anybody either buying the store or the house because of the shape of that lot.
I hear where you're coming.
How, if we were to combine those two properties, how does the village view grandfathered use when it combines
I
two
see- I
parcels
see where
that
you're
have
going.
a
I don't-
store and a residential?
I see where you're going with it, and I don't have an answer for you.
Right.
So that means there might be a
I don't know
possibility. I know what
if
you're
that, once,
talking about.
if the lots were combined, does that mean that
They're both,
the whole lot is now considered grandfathered business?
That's right.
yeah.
Somebody could look at it the other way and say, well, it's grandfathered residential. So I don't have an answer for you. I'll have to ask my book and my gurus.
Okay, thank you.
To say, our goal is to do something that
Positive, I know what
would be
you're talking
better
about.
for Walton, and that would at the same time bring taxes in. The way it's going now, it's going the other way, and we would like to see it sold that somebody could put a business, whether it was a professional building or a small retail, gift shops, whatever, something that would look good coming into it, as opposed to trying to keep it as an apartment thing. The way George and I feel, we feel right now, Walton has enough DSS and HUD rentals kicking around already. I just, that's our goal.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, now, does anyone want to make a motion on what we want to go from here? Do we want to pursue this any further? We want to just drop it for now and not go any further with this?
Has the village attorney been consulted?
Yeah,
What says he?
it's up to us. He doesn't have a say one way or the other. That's up to us. If we decide not to go any further, then that's it. But if we want to go further, we still have to do more paperwork, have to have another hearing and before we could go through with anything more. This is just like the preliminary type. But if they decide, everyone here decides that they don't want to go any further, then it's just dropped.
See, my trouble with this is more related to Steve, because Steve's been kicking this around with us, recommending this as our code enforcement official for at least a year, if not a couple of years. It was part of a much bigger project. And I'd hate, just from a bureaucratic standpoint, I'd hate to table it again, because you're gonna come back with it, or it won't be me, but some other board's gonna come back with it again. And I'd like to do something, just so it's resolved, whether the people here end up being happy with us or not happy with us, so we end up voting on something rather than just table it and everybody's still up in the air because it might come up again.
Well, we could vote to not do anything now, and still somebody can always bring it up again down the road. You know, we cannot stop it from not coming up again. That's, I understand where you're coming from, but...
Well, what if one of us made a motion to change the parameters of this suggestion? To make it from the end of the property line of the castle to Titus Place?
Well, he said that you can't, because it has to be, because of the state law, it has to be from street to street. So it can't be, then it's considered spot zoning.
What happens if you do that? Is the state gonna come down and slap your hand? Huh? So do it. Do it. We're Walton, New York. We're incorporated. Why can't we do something that we want to do? I agree with you, Steve.
Well, it was a question, right?
Yeah. It's a good one. It's a good one.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm very good with it, but I don't know what...
Anybody want to join me if I make the motion?
What's your motion?
That I motion that we reduce this map area to go from the end of the property line of the castle to the end of the property line on Titus Place.
That doesn't get you and your status in any issue, does it, Steve? Because we're doing it?
It's not going to get me in trouble. I mean, ultimately, you decide this is where we want it to be. It's probably going to need...
No, I just didn't want the board throwing its weight around only to have you be the one that pays the consequences.
If you delineate an area on that map, it's still going to end up going to have to be vetted by our attorney.
Right. So then we have to make a decision if we're going to go forward with this. We can make the changes to where we want to go, but tonight we have to make a decision, do we want to go further with this? That's what we're here tonight for.
I would second Steve's motion.
That we go ahead and look into making the parameters smaller.
Well, you know, Steve, if we're going to do something like that, why are we going to go to Titus Place? Why don't we end it at William Street?
Tell me.
Because after that, there are houses between Titus Place and William Street. I don't want to see those houses put into multi-use either.
Right.
But if we go from the end of the castle to William Street, it's only that one house that changes.
It's actually two houses on that map.
Two houses.
Oh, okay. Oh, this little one behind, sorry, yeah.
Well, my suggestion, I don't know it as well as you do, but my suggestion would be just to include
It would be just for those two
his
houses.
property. I mean, ultimately, that's why we're here.
To talk to your question is, what if the state comes down and decides to take us to court because we've intentionally, because you'll be the first one screaming about
Listen,
legal fees.
Walton went through a zoning process many years ago. When I bought my house, which is the second oldest house in the village of Walton, where I live, okay? And when I bought it, it was zoned commercial. Then the village decided to change the zoning, and they zoned me residential. That went a number of years, which I've lived there 50 years. Then they did another rezoning because they did spot zoning. I was residential, the house next door was residential, McAdams was commercial, on the end was commercial, then you had another residential, then you had D&D, which is commercial. That's called spot zoning.
So then, based on your testimony...
They changed that.
Based on your testimony right now, you're saying that I will be long dead before the state even comes to sue us?
If all they have to worry about is little Walton, New York, and a little tiny piece of property that we're going to rezone to help this gentleman, and maybe help the village of Walton in the long run, too.
Okay, so don't interrupt, because I made a motion, and now I just have to specify the motion with my colleagues.
I'm just trying to reinforce your motion.
Thank you.
And what is your motion?
Well, now I don't know what I said.
That you were going to go from you made the motion to go from the end of the castle to Titus Place.
And then you said...
And I'm disagreeing. If we're going to make our own rules, I say it just goes to William Street.
Then I concur.
Okay.
Then therefore I amend my motion.
Okay, and I'll second it.
From Titus
to William.
And Dick,
Pending
that addresses your
attorney
concern.
Exactly.
Attending for any attorney approval. Okay, so we have,
If this, can I show you there? If this, in my concern, yeah,
it would
understand.
take your property on Williams.
If this line stayed in the same spot it is right now, stopped right there, or right there,
Here we go.
yeah, that allows us to, see how that is? That allows us to do something as like a one
All right, so all right, everybody, please sit and have a, so you're making the motion.
I'm making the motion.
I second.
Truth, and you seconded?
Well, he's talking about.
Excuse me, Tank, Dave.
We're in the middle. Yeah,
We're making a vote here. So Steve made the motion that we're gonna go from Titus to, depending on attorney approval.
No,
From the
no.
castle?
From the end of the castle property.
From the end of the
castle property
William
that
Street.
borders O'Connell's house.
Yes,
O'Connell's house
the
is not
borders
part of
O'Connell's.
it. Where it starts the castle property to William Street.
Yes.
That's it?
Both sides of William Street or one?
One,
One.
to the middle of the road.
The middle of the road. Then so be it. That's my motion. Teresa, you second?
Yes, I second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. That's what we're gonna do, depending on the attorney approval. Okay? All right.
Now that that's over, it's like where I live at 59 Stockton.
Yeah,
That was commercial when I moved in there.
yeah,
Of course, now it's residential.
yeah.
So,
Well, right
Okay.
across the
You know,
street
you
was a
might
gun
wanna-
shop
yeah,
for
okay,
years,
good,
too.
good. I
That
was
was
gonna say, you might want to jump to this.
Can we-
Because
can we-
these people are
can we-
interested in this.
All right. I'm gonna do things a little bit differently. Normally, I gotta go to all the people who have the department heads, but seeing how there are people here I know because of the mental health and because of the letter that was generated from the chamber, I'm going to read the letter so everybody can hear it. To the attention of the Walton Supervisor Charles Gregory, who's sitting right there, and town board members, Walton Mayor Ed Snow, and the village board, who's here. The Walton, New York Chamber of Commerce Incorporated unanimously agreed at the December board meeting to support the siting of the new mental health clinic in the village of Walton. However, the chamber board members support locating the facility on Fancher Avenue site rather than Delaware Street location. The chamber members are concerned that the Delaware Street site is the last viable piece of commercial property in Walton's business district, and the property should be preserved for commercial development. Sincerely yours, President Maureen Walker, Vice President Keith Davis, Secretary Patricia Brakey, and Treasurer Tim Goldberg. Gottlieb, I'm sorry. So I know that there are some people here concerned about that. We, the village board, had a meeting about this months ago, and there were a lot of residents, like there are here tonight, came up that were concerned that they did not want it on Fancher Avenue. And we supported that, and we backed that. We're not changing our opinion. The chamber, like anyone else, has a right to state what they feel. But what I heard last night, people calling me up all over Facebook were saying that, well, the mayor is okay, they're gonna put this on Fancher. No, this had nothing to do with me. This is strictly the chamber, and they are, like I said, they are entitled to their opinion. I went up and spoke to the supervisor, Gregory, today. He feels the same way as we do, that that's where we would like the property to go. Again, it's the county that makes the decision on where they're going to go. However, what I said before, I spoke to our attorney, and our attorney says that the place on Fancher Avenue is not, the way it's zoned right now is not okay for that property to go there. Now, the county may feel different, and they have to go before the village ZBA and do things like that. But as far as we're concerned, this is our stance on that. And that's because the majority of people from that area came and showed concern that they did not want it on Fancher, and we haven't changed. So regardless of what, everybody has a right to put their letters out, but it's not from the village. And I just wanted everyone to understand that. And if there's anyone here that has concerns or questions about that while you're sitting before we get started, I'll give you time to talk about it. Does anyone want to say anything?
Yes, please do a study of traffic flow through Fancher Avenue, Sewell Place, Stockton Avenue, South Street, and Howell Street.
I'm sure, Charlie Gregory's here, I'm sure the county, right, is doing that, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that will be part of, a traffic study for either site will be part of the process.
Yes.
Environmental quality review on that piece of property, it used to be a swamp.
Well, they will be doing borings and they've already done drillings on that
Yeah,
property.
and I'm just curious, like, how do I find out? I mean, I remember when Robinson dumped soil there.
The county, I would go to the county board of supervisors, speak to Mr. Gregory, Supervisor Gregory, he can find that out for you, right?
It was a wetland between
Yeah, good.
2005
Because he's the county, Charlie's here.
With the mayor's permission, I think I can answer that. Right now, as the mayor said, we've done diggings at both sites, done borings at both sites now. The boring down in this Delaware Street property was done this last week. Once the results of that are complete, there'll be a public hearing for here in Walton, so folks will be able to address that. What those studies are going is for the seeker that you're looking for.
Yeah, the reason I bring up the environmental quality reviews because my wife and I fought the cell tower. This was a town issue. The town put the cell tower. If everybody remembers that. Now, we fought the cell tower. Yes, we used the cell tower, but they built it in the floodplain. And now they got a $10,000 grant to study where to relocate it out of the floodplain. That's what I understand.
You declined that, right?
Did you decline the grant?
They declined it, they
Okay.
declined the grant.
Excuse me, well, anyway, it was, the environmental quality review came back and said, yes, it's a good location for a cell tower, and obviously it's in the floodplain.
So we're not talking about that right now, it's just about that thing.
I'm just saying.
So any other questions on Fancher, I mean, with mental health while you're here? Because I know there's people concerned, I mean, we haven't changed. Our opinion as the board is it's been the same as it was. I didn't lie to you then, I'm not lying to you now. As far as we're concerned, this is where we stand on it. Unless the county decided to try and fight the ZBA and go before, they would have to go before our ZBA, our local people in the ZBA board, and try and get a variance. In order to get a variance, that you have to prove a hardship. And a hardship is not that easy to prove. You can't just say, well, we want to come here because it has to be really a hardship. So that would be, I think, would be a problem. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Pat DiNardo, 18 Holly Street. I also own property on Fancher Ave, and I would like to applaud the mayor and the board on their decision not to go along with this.
Well, you know, my feeling and the board's feeling, we represent the people. The people vote and put us here. I know I'm repeating it again, but I feel very strong about that, and I think the board does as well. And give you an example, Shepherd Street. We had a whole thing up on Shepherd Street. There was people came down with 100 signatures. We decided that we're only going to do the portion that we have to do that's failing, and we're not going to do the others. But remember, sometimes people you live by the sword. Sometimes you fall on the sword. So if anybody up on Shepherd, they go over the bank and get hurt, don't come back and say we didn't do something because you said you didn't want us to do it. I'm not saying this is totally a different thing, but we will do what we're here represented for the majority of the people. And the majority is not for being on Fancher, so therefore we are taking a stance of that way. And the county is the ones who are going to make that final decision. My suggestion would be you need to get a hold of our supervisor here. Thank you, Charlie. I'm not trying to throw in you, but I'm saying he is the one, but he's the one that represents the town. Like I represent, he represents the town. And if you have concerns, write to him, and he will bring them to the town, the county supervisors, and they will discuss it further. Correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mayor Snow?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you said this. Did you say that they have chosen Walton? It's going to be one of the two sites that they pass?
Let Charlie, he's a supervisor for the county. Let him explain that.
With your permission,
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Mayor, originally there were 3 sites that were looked at, one in Delhi, 2 in Walton. The one in Delhi is unsuitable, so now it's the 2 sites in Walton, Fancher Ave and on Delaware Street.
So it'll be one.
So basically, I know someone in Albany, and I think they were doing a study on whether Fancher Avenue can even be considered, considering the clientele and the location of the school, proximity to the school. So that basically leads it to Delaware Street.
Who was that, if I may? Who is that you talked to?
It was a person doing research for a senator or whatever.
Which senator?
I can't tell you.
Why not?
I'm not sure who their client was.
Well, in light of that,
I just wondered if you have any
we would
inkling on
like
that
to
or not.
proceed forward with the rest of the board agenda.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. All right, does anybody else have any questions about the mental health or anything on Pantry? You all understand where we stand on this? And please, when you go on Facebook, whoever does, I mean, don't, I think some people on Facebook, I have a thing of saying, why ruin a good story and tell the truth? And I think that's what happens on Facebook sometimes. They put their own thing in it, and the spin is incorrect. They were blaming me last night. I have nothing to do with this.
I never saw your name come up, but I just
didn't
saw
either.
2 different letters.
Yeah.
And I think that was the confusion because.
Yeah, no, there was, yeah, but no, we haven't changed. We're still the same way, and you want us to do this, and we're backing it, okay?
Just quick, if the board's against it, can they just go ahead and build it there?
Yes.
He just said.
I just told you before, they could decide that they wanted to put it there, but they would have to go before the local ZBA. The local ZBA is all our people here, and they would have to show a reason why it would be an extreme hardship that they had to go there.
Okay.
But if they have other places to go, then that doesn't make it a hardship. You know what I mean? The hardship would be, we have no place else to go, and this place is gonna stay here if you want, well, they have other places to go. So I can't see any reason why that would be a hardship. So that's why I felt so strongly about it. Okay? So, yes, Keith. Go ahead.
This all pertains to a letter from the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce, okay? The reason this letter was presented is because as a chamber member and a director, I feel I have a responsibility to look out for the commercial district in this community, which is depleted, if you've noticed, to nothing. And the only viable piece of property, 3.5 acres, available for commercial use out of the floodplain, by the way, is that property down there. If we're ever going to encourage or entice a new business or an existing business to move there and build anything, that's it, and create some jobs. I guess I wouldn't be doing my job as a chamber officer if I didn't defend our commercial district, which has depleted. And if you all look, we do have a lot of antique shops, but look at all the businesses that we've lost in this community. And the jobs, Delmet's gone, Bailey's is gone, the Foundry is gone, the Reporter Company is gone. I wanted to build a elderly retirement home on the property right behind where the Sunoco is. That got shot down. Never
Now where am I gonna live?
Sorry about that. You'll have to live on the other side of the street over there in that commercial area that you just voted on. But that's, just so you know where we came from, that was our opinion, not that we want to see it go to Fancher or go to any place else. We just didn't want to see it leave Walton. But the county's only given us, all of us, only 2 places. One is that one down there, and the other one is on the end of Fancher, which the mental health clinic currently is just a stone throw from there, close by. Traffic, I live on Route 10, and I'll tell you, traffic, I probably get 300 to 500 or 600 cars a day go by. I've got children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren right there. So I do have a concern, and I know where you're coming from. But at the same time, a community's economic condition depends on its business community. If you don't have a strong business community, you can see what's happened, because it's happening here. And I'm just saying that is a very excellent piece of property for a commercial business. If you wanted to open a business in Walton and you said, look, we've got 3.5 acres, but it's in the floodplain, and guess what your flood insurance is? Any of you people pay flood insurance? Huh? It's outrageous, and it's going to get worse. Am I right, Steve?
Keeps going up.
18 to 25% per year compounded. So get ready, all right? And that's not in the floodplain. So that gives us some real good points to sell that property to another business.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Okay.
Did you want to say something?
Folks, if you got questions on this, you're more than welcome. Next Monday night is the town board meeting. Come talk to us there, but Mr. Mayor, I think that's probably...
We gotta move on. I'll let you have just 1 minute. You want to say something real quick?
Yeah, I don't want to take a lot more of your time, but the Chamber of Commerce, I have all the respect in the world for them. They do good things for our village. But the argument doesn't hold water because they want to save that property for potential commercial business. Isn't that what we're talking about? Potentially moving there is the mental health clinic? Would that be a business?
Off the tax roll, you're gonna pick up the difference in the taxes.
And fracture our community, and fracture our residential area by adding a mental health facility.
Oh, my house would be for sale within the...
I'll let it go vacant.
All right, we need to move on with this. I understand where everybody's coming from. Thank you for your, you're all welcome to stay, but if anybody, if we settled why you came, you're...
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
It gets boring from here.
Yeah, it gets boring from here, yeah. Take care. Yeah, you're welcome. Take care.
How are you, Patsy?
Sounds like
All right, can we...
Can you get the door closed?
What?
Shut the door open, so we're paying heat.
It's hot.
Step outside. Not everybody's hot.
Whoa.
We're paying the heat.
Okay, all right, let's go on to number 2. We need a motion to close, right?
He did.
We did, all right, we did, okay. I'm sorry, I lost my track there for thought there. Okay, the abstracts, everyone had a chance to read the abstracts, and if you had any questions, bring them up. If not, I'd like to need a motion to approve the abstracts.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Jason, the first? Sorry, I know it took a while to get you here, I'm sorry, but you had to adjust it. Now you can sit down for that.
You're getting paid for this, right?
No.
There's a lot of...
We are.
No, we don't.
Did everybody get my report?
Yes, thank you.
Was there any questions on my report? With that, I only have an item tonight. We're requesting that the board move forward on sand filter number 2 and the sand replacement in that filter. We have 3 done to date, and we're looking to get this done before the end of the budget year. So this is a budgeted expense. It's 100% New York City reimbursable, and the cost is $83,915 to Paragon Construction.
I'll make that motion that we authorize the replacement.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
How often is that done?
This will be the first time since it was built 15 years ago. So the sand experts tell us that the load from a dairy plant can break the sand down.
Big thing.
It encapsulates the sand, so it can't do the work it takes to clean the water. So that's the reason why we're replacing it. But,
wow.
Can it be rebuilt?
actually, what they basically do is they suck the sand right out of the filters, and then they blow more sand back in. So it's just a great big sandbox, really.
Jason, I'm just going to read from your report for everybody who's here and who may hear it.
Speak up.
That rags continue to be an issue, pulled 1 or 2 times per week to derag. Pumps are showing wear due to continued pulling of the rags. So please, if you're flushing any kind of wipes, please stop it. It's costing us money in both personnel, and eventually it's going to be in equipment as well. So please throw them in the trash and not down your toilet. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Chief?
Thank you.
Hey, Chief.
Let me turn toward you, Lillian. Everyone has the report, I see.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things tonight, which is unusual. I try to keep it really limited. First of all, Craig DeMunn resigned as a part-time police officer.
Oh, sure. So you're going to be the sheriff, right?
Yeah,
Too big for us now?
Yeah, he got too good for us. Actually, I guess it's a requirement. I don't know.
Yeah.
We also lost Jay Vandemark to Johnson City, which was very unfortunate. But that happens.
The new copier was installed, and the thing is awesome. I think we can launch rockets with it, I'm pretty sure. I have a couple requests for trainings. I would like to send Aaron Smith to a TASER instructor course in Delhi. There's a cost of $100. It's on the 2nd and 3rd of March. The reason for that, the states come down and they are making a requirement. The state came down with a requirement that officers who carry tasers have to be certified by an officer who's a state certified instructor. So we have the option of sending Aaron for 2 days at $100, or we're going to be sending guys all over the place trying to catch up with state instructors.
Well, it seems to me to be more economical.
Can we send more than one at once?
We don't need more than one instructor. If Aaron comes back and he's a qualified instructor, he can instruct our fellows.
Guys. Right.
So no need to send a second.
And unfortunately, other than myself, Aaron's the only general topics instructor, which I hope to work on here soon with Devin.
You need a motion for that? I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Got it.
I also would like to send Devin and Aaron to a breath test operator course that's being held at the Broome County Sheriff's Office the 27th through the 29th of March. There's no cost for the course, and it'll just be the officer's time.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And one other training that I need, that we would like, is to send Babcock to interviews and interrogation, which is a 2-day course, and there's no cost on that. And that'd be the 21st and 22nd. That's also in Broome County.
February or March?
That's in March also.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Have a motion? Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, when he goes to, he can come back and train the others as well, right?
Freddie?
Yeah.
All the other guys have had, it's something, it's such a shame, it's something that should be given in the basic police course.
Right.
And it's not. And, it sounds like a real aggressive type course. It's not. You learn to study people when they're lying.
Look into my eyes.
You don't lie.
Yeah, I don't lie. Okay.
I'm not, no. So those are the training requests that I have. The one thing that I'm really pleased with is we just received the announcement through Scott Gluckert from the Delaware County Stop DWI program, and they've increased that grant to $4,800 from $3,000 last year.
Nice.
And that's due to the efforts of the officers.
Yes, please thank him for
That's good,
us.
thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And with that, ironically, of all things, today I just received a check for the final payment of that grant from last year for $2,140, which Jody's now got.
Nice.
The last thing I have, and Charlie's been helping us with this, is a memorandum of understanding between, it's directed between the Walton Police Department and the Delaware County Mental Health Clinic. Something that we've been working on for quite some time. In the county, through the board and the county, we've now got it so it's right on the verge. Basically what it's about, and I think you've all got copies, it's basically what it's about is New York State has not New York State. There's a mental hygiene law within the state. And there's a certain section of it which is called 945. And the 945 is basically when a mental health facility, which we have more than one in the village, by the way, we have 3. Okay, some of them deal with youth, some of them deal with other adults, and then of course we have the Delaware County Mental Health Clinic. And their directors can issue an order for somebody who's having a mental issues to be picked up and transported to a mental health facility. Well, for us, that means that the Village of Walton Police Department picks these people up and transports them to Binghamton. And up until just recently, and there are a multitude of them a year, we'll get a call to say this person's having a mental breakdown, please go pick them up and then transport them to, or a lot of times it'll be right directly from the mental health facility when they come in. A lot of these people are not from the Village of Walton. Okay, we have a Delaware County Mental Health Clinic, but people will come from Stamford, they'll come from Davenport, they'll come from all over. So the burden and the cost was coming back on the village taxpayer. Through working with the board and Charlie and the county, we've now developed this memorandum where when we transport, we can actually charge back the cost of that transport to the county through the mental health clinic. So it's going to take that burden off the Village of Walton. The only exemption is when in fact the person is from the Village of Walton. At that point, the Village of Walton pays for it because they're one of ours.
I think it's up to what, 5,000 a year, up to
Yep,
maximum?
we can do up to a
5,000?
maximum of 5,000 a year, and I think that we will fall within that criteria. So, I need permission for that to be
You have to
signed up.
accept it.
Yeah, accepted and signed up on.
I'll make the motion to accept that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'll pick those up in the minute.
Yep, I'll take care of it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that will help. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all that.
Thanks for sticking with that, Paul.
Thank the supervisor too for pushing through the county for us. I appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt's not here. Bill Brown?
Gee, Matt missed so much fun tonight.
Hello.
Hi, Bill.
Thick packets aren't always a good sign, Bill.
No, there's, most of it's, just the first 2 pages really are what we're gonna, try to go through. The first item at the wastewater treatment plant, an item we've talked about for the last several months, replacement of the grit screw. The village received funding towards that project through Senator Bonasek's office, and the grant agreement was authorized last month. The next step in that process is to move forward with the project, which requires cash, basically cash to be on hand. So we're asking that the board consider adopting the board resolution, or the bond resolution, which was prepared by the village's bond council, in the amount of $150,000 to provide funds for the grit screw, and also to provide funds for a replacement influent pump, and to conduct plant-wide lighting repairs at the wastewater treatment plant. The grit screw itself is estimated in the range of $80,000 to $100,000. The influent pump at approximately $30,000, and then the lighting repairs of about $20,000. The grit screw is what the DASNY grant is going towards, which is in the amount of $50,000. So it reduces the net ultimate cost to the village. The village does have to front the money, and then when the work's done, and the contractor's been paid for the work, you submit that cost to the state, and they reimburse us up to the $50,000. So we are asking that the board consider adoption of the bond resolution to go towards providing funding for that.
We authorize the bond resolution as Bill has presented.
Questions?
I have a question. If we put the bond in place and implement it, are the current increases that we've made to the rates going to cover paying the bond, or are we going to have to raise again?
We've got to build that cost into the next year's budget, so we've got to pass the bond resolution, authorizes the village to get a ban, the short-term financing. Ultimately, that ban would be rolled into a longer-term bond of 10 to 15 years, and then you have a debt service for those 10 to 15 years. That's the value that has to be built into the annual budget. Starting next year, wouldn't come under this year's budget, it would go towards next year's budget. So those costs have to get built into the budget.
The overall budget.
Right, the overall sewer wastewater treatment plant budget.
Is it a large excess over what?
I would estimate no. Your cost is potentially $100,000 bond over the course of 10 to 15 years. So depending on how the interest rates come in and how you structure it, it's a debt service in the range of $10,000 a year versus your overall sewer budget, which is in excess of $1 million. So it's something we do need to budget for. I can't say it'll have X impact on the rates, but it is a relatively low cost compared to the overall.
And we need to cut back where we can cut back to make it work.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's good to know, but we really sure don't have any choice, being what the grit screw does.
The grit, I mean, all of the
Stuff it has
components
to be, the money we're spending for the lighting from NYSERDA, we can get money, that's part of the money we're gonna look to get, that could help some on that, we'll save a lot of money for that. and we'll have to make the budget work, then we'll have to come back where we have to come back so it works. We can't keep raising it all the time. Okay. So you made a motion, Dave, I imagine, right? Was it a second? Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The other items are mostly for information. There is another lighting project going on in the Seabud building, which is 100% New York City funding, but we're replacing light fixtures with new LED fixtures. And there is some NICEAG rebates available to offset some of that cost as well, which goes back into the wastewater treatment.
Yeah, let me just address that real quick so people know. There is a $50,000 grant out there through NYSERDA to upgrade the LED lights. We are in the process of looking to change all the village lights around and some of the lights down at the wastewater treatment plant. And we will save, once we change these lights around, they say that we will save approximately 70% of what it costs for the electricity on the lights. So there'll be a big savings to do this. And there's grant money out there to help us with it. So we are in the process of getting that also being done. Just want everybody to know. Go ahead.
The next item we have to ask for is related to Shepherd Street. The village received a separate grant through Senator Bonasek's office, a $100,000 SAM grant to go towards repairs of Shepherd Street. We received paperwork and documentation from DASNY to move forward with that grant. It does take an extended period of time from when the grant is announced till when you actually have
like 2 years.
the ability to move forward with the project. So the next step in the process is to continue with the paperwork. One of the steps we have to do is to identify the seeker status. Ultimately, the work we're looking to do up there is to make repairs to the street. The current status, we're not saying at this stage we're making one section one way or two, or keeping it as a current two-way street. We're not to that stage yet. We're just looking to move forward with the funding to allow us to ultimately make repairs, which are going to be guide rails and paving and slope stabilization and things like that. So those are all things that you have up there now. They need to be repaired. So we are asking the village identify that as a type 2 seeker action, which is replacement and maintenance of existing facilities. So there's a resolution behind the bond resolution that identifies that, basically to identify the repairs along Shepherd Street as a type 2 action, which doesn't require further environmental review.
So we're making a motion to accept that.
We go further with the seeker review. Yeah, we're not saying how we're going to spend all the money. We're just going through the seeker to see what we're going to be, what's available, what we're going to think about doing and everything.
Get the
There's
wheels.
not committing any money or anything.
Get the wheels started on the process.
So I make that motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And just so the public knows again, on this particular project on Shepherd, we're getting $100,000, and Bill already knows this. We're going to try and do just about what we can with that money, try not to have too much more money spent on that. If we do the road, we'll try and do that on the chips, that's on something else and everything. So we may talk about doing a bunch of other things, but some of that will come under different areas also, just so people know. Okay.
The next item is goes along with that as well. It's the DASNY paperwork. So we're asking that the village board authorize the mayor and the deputy mayor to sign the application forms to move forward with requesting the $100,000 in grant funds.
The DASNY is the company that the state uses to go through with the money that we're getting from the bonus act, so everybody knows that.
It's the dormitory authority of the state of New York. So they have a series of forms, application forms documenting the financial status of the village and that we won't use the money for non-street related. We can't use it for religious purposes and stuff like that. So there's a series of forms that we'd ask the board to consider, authorizing the mayor and actually the deputy mayor to sign.
All right, need a motion for that.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else?
Yep, one more. We have, the village submitted a preliminary application back in November to Delaware County Soil and Water Conservation District. The preliminary application was to install in-stream grade control structures at our utility crossings. So in the 2006 flood, there were 4 or 5 utility water and sewer crossings which were damaged and had to be replaced. We are asking funding from Soil and Water Conservation District to put elements in the stream below grade that prevent the stream from washing out during a flood event. So the initial application, the pre-application went in November. That was accepted. The village was notified last week that full applications are now being accepted. We have to have it in by March 1st. So we're asking that the board authorize the mayor to sign the application to go to Soil and Water Conservation District to apply for funding to protect our water and sewer lines.
I make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think everybody understands that last flood, like we said, when the stream, we had the flood, a lot of the stuff here over here, the utilities were dug out from the water and everything. This will let us go to all the streams, East Branch, Third, Wilton, West Branch, and do something to prevent that from happening again, which will save us a lot of money. So, just so everybody knows that. Okay. That it? It's enough.
That's enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Steve?
Good evening.
Still standing, Steve?
Yes,
Well
I'm
done.
still standing. Feel a little beat up, but that's all right. Everybody has my report.
Yes, thank
My
you.
forwarded mid-month and annual report as well. If you need a hard copy, I can get you a hard copy of that. But basically, in January, I completed the CRS recertification packet, sent that in on the 17th, got confirmation back on the 25th of January that that's been accepted, so we're certified for another year, so everybody gets another 10%, or continues to get 10% discount on their flood insurance. Moving forward in CRS, the game plan is to try to get us to a 7, which would be a 15% discount on flood insurance. There's been a lot of things that have taken place between the time that we first submitted and now that earn us more points, so the next step is to just figure out where all those points are, and then goal is to have that done and have a letter before